In the world of advanced visual effects and holographic engineering, there is a fundamental rule. You cannot create light without first mastering the dark. The illusions you see in massive blockbuster movies or high-end theme parks are just pixels on a screen. But when you try to pull those pixels off the screen and force them to exist in three-dimensional space, when you try to bend raw photons to create solid objects out of thin air, you aren't just an artist anymore. You are fighting the laws of physics. It takes millions of lines of code, thousands of hours of rendering, and absolute obsessive isolation. I spent my entire career building machines that could project beautiful fantasies into the real world. I just never realized that the most dangerous, deceptive fantasy of all was the marriage I was living in. My name is Rowan. I'm 35 years old, and I am a lead volumetric VFX architect and software engineer. 5 years ago, I married Camilla. Camilla was a creative director for a massive live entertainment agency. She was glamorous, endlessly charismatic, and addicted to the high-stakes, adrenaline-fueled world of stadium tours and VIP after-parties. I was the quiet, introverted engineer who preferred the total, absolute silence of my pitch-black rendering studio. We were opposites, but I thought we were the perfect team. She designed the experiences, and I built the technology to make them happen. For 4 agonizing weekends, every holiday, and every ounce of my personal savings, I built my absolute masterpiece. I called it the Mirage Engine. It wasn't just a projector, it was a revolutionary, hyper-portable system of synchronized laser arrays and volumetric rendering software. It could project 8K, 100-foot-tall, photorealistic 3D holograms into thin air, requiring no massive screens, no smoke machines, and no mirrors. It was the absolute holy grail of the live entertainment industry. A system like this would completely eliminate the need for heavy, expensive stadium video boards. The patents alone were appraised by an independent tech firm at roughly $50 million. I promised Camilla that this technology was our golden ticket. I told her we would license it, build our own production empire, and she would be the most powerful creative director in the world. But Camilla didn't want to build an empire with me. She looked at my masterpiece, and she didn't see a husband's sacrifice. She saw a multi-million-dollar corporate asset, and she found a billionaire who was more than happy to help her steal it. The foundation of our marriage started to shatter when Camilla's agency partnered with a massive global touring syndicate. The CEO of that syndicate was a man named Vance. Vance was 45 years old and the absolute poster boy for music industry arrogance. He didn't write music, he didn't sing, and he didn't build stages. He was a ruthless corporate financier who bought up independent talent, trapped them in 360-degree contracts, and squeezed every dime out of stadium tours. He wore custom leather jackets, flew on a Gulfstream, and treated brilliant engineers like disposable roadies. Suddenly, Camilla was spending all her time with Vance, claiming she was advising him on the visual strategy for the upcoming world tour. The red flags didn't just quietly appear, they triggered every internal alarm system I had. First, the profound, unapologetic disrespect. Camilla started bringing Vance over to my private soundstage while I was working. Vance would strut through my studio, pointing at my highly sensitive laser arrays and openly mocking my career. "Rowan, you're a great pixel pusher, buddy," Vance smirked one afternoon, leaning against my server rack. "But you're thinking like a basement nerd. This tech is a product. You need a visionary like me to scale it. You just write the code. I build the culture." Camilla didn't defend me. She just smiled and handed him a glass of sparkling water. Second, the intense pressure to hand over the source code. Camilla began relentlessly insisting that I needed to upload the unencrypted raw source code for the Mirage engine to a shared cloud drive so Vance's legal team could review it for a potential licensing deal. Third,
The intimacy completely vanished. She moved her things into the guest bedroom, claiming that the hum of my rendering servers was giving her migraines. She started coming home at 3 a.m., smelling like high-end cologne and aviation fuel. When a creative demand suddenly demands the unencrypted master keys to a $50 million proprietary algorithm, you don't hit upload, you run a deep-level security audit.
When you build a highly advanced volumetric rendering studio, the room relies on a massive network of infrared motion capture cameras and ambient acoustic sensors hidden in the ceilings. They aren't meant to spy. They're designed to map the physical space so the holograms can interact with the environment perfectly. But as the server administrator, the cameras are always recording raw data to the local server. One Saturday afternoon, while I was supposedly at a hardware supplier across town, my phone alerted me to unauthorized physical movement in the primary soundstage. I pulled my car into an empty parking lot, opened my secure server app, and tapped into the live motion capture feed. I didn't just see an affair, I witnessed a premeditated, highly coordinated corporate heist. Vance's arrogant voice echoed through the microphone. The global pop star's management team just signed off. If we debut this 100-foot hologram tech on opening night at Wembley Stadium, the tour will sell out in 20 minutes. We can patent the hardware under my holding company the next morning. Have you gotten the source code yet? Camila laughed, a cold, cruel sound that made the blood freeze in my veins. He's uploading the test build to his local server tonight. He's so naive, he trusts me completely. Tomorrow, while he's at his parents' house, I'll hire a crew to load the physical laser arrays into a truck, and I'll download the master repository. We'll launch the tech at Wembley, I'll serve him with divorce papers the morning after, and we'll be on your jet to Monaco. The poor pixel pusher won't even know what hit him. Vance responded, "You're a genius, my love. The nerd is gonna fund our entire empire." I sat alone in the sweltering cab of my car, staring at my phone as my entire reality shattered into a million pieces. My wife of 5 years was sleeping with a corporate parasite. Together, they were actively plotting to steal 4 years of my blood, sweat, and genius. They were going to steal my $50 million technology, launch it on the biggest stage in the world, claim it as their own, and leave me completely broke and discarded. They thought I was just a naive nerd who pushed pixels. They didn't understand the level of absolute, unmitigated digital destruction a lead VFX architect is capable of coding. If you want to destroy a parasite, you don't lock the door. You invite them inside, let them steal the weapon, and then you quietly remove the safety switch. I didn't confront her. If I did, Vance's army of corporate lawyers would bury me in injunctions, claim I verbally agreed to a partnership, and tie the technology up in litigation for a decade until I went bankrupt. I needed them to steal the hardware. I needed Vance to proudly stand in front of 80,000 people and claim my technology as his own in front of the most powerful entertainment journalists on Earth. So, I went to the studio and played the perfect oblivious fool. I took the true master source code, encrypted it with a 256-bit key, and moved it to an air-gapped hard drive that I locked in a bank vault. Then, I created a perfectly cloned master repository folder and placed it right on my unprotected desktop. To Vance's lead technicians, the software inside would look absolutely flawless. It would compile perfectly. When they tested it in their private rehearsals, it would render beautiful, towering holograms exactly as requested. But deeply embedded in the absolute foundational math of the rendering engine, buried so deep in the volumetric geometry code that no QA tester on Earth would ever find it, I wrote a logic bomb, a digital Trojan horse. I coded a hidden, encrypted backdoor linked to an independent cellular module I had hardwired inside the primary laser array. The system would function flawlessly right until the moment I sent a specific 16-digit alphanumeric override code from my phone. Once that code was received, the engine would violently reject the local user's rendering files. It would lock out all external controls, bypass the technical director's override switches, and execute a hard-coded, uncancelable visual sequence that I personally buried in the firmware. I left the rigged folder on my desktop. I told Camilla I was going out of town for the weekend. I let her move the laser arrays out of the studio. I let them steal the bomb. Now, they just had to press the detonator.
While I was supposedly out of town, I was actually sitting in the high-rise office of the most ruthless intellectual property and entertainment litigator in London and Los Angeles. I handed him my time-stamped source code, my early hardware prototypes, the official patent applications I had secretly expedited, and the crystal-clear audio-visual recordings of Camilla and Vance explicitly conspiring to commit corporate fraud and IP theft. My lawyer smiled like a shark smelling blood in the water. "Rowan," he said, "Vance is using your stolen software to launch a $100 million stadium tour for one of the biggest pop stars on the planet. That isn't just theft, that is massive, willful commercial copyright infringement on a global scale. If he broadcasts this, we won't just sue, we will liquidate his entire touring conglomerate." We drafted a massive federal lawsuit, an emergency cease and desist order, and a barrage of DMCA takedown notices. But we didn't file them. We waited. Vance and Camilla were busy setting up their grand execution. Vance had hyped up the greatest visual experience in live music history to every major news outlet in London. The opening night of the world tour was set at Wembley Stadium in London. 80,000 tickets sold out in minutes. Millions more were scheduled to watch the opening number via a live global live stream. They were building a massive, glittering castle of light, and I was holding the only switch that mattered.
Opening night at Wembley Stadium. The energy was electric. 80,000 screaming fans packed the arena. Giant spotlights swept across the sky. Vance and Camilla were standing in the ultra-exclusive VIP glass skybox overlooking the stage, drinking champagne, ready to secure their empire. I was sitting in my dark, empty soundstage back in the United States. My laptop was open on my desk, displaying the live global live stream. I had a cup of black coffee in my hand. At exactly 9 p.m., the stadium lights went pitch black. The crowd erupted into a deafening roar. "Ladies and gentlemen," a booming voice echoed through the stadium, "prepare to witness the future." On the live stream, I watched my stolen laser arrays spin to life. The volumetric mist deployed perfectly. A breathtaking 100-foot photorealistic hologram of the pop star began to materialize in the center of the stadium, glowing in brilliant gold light. Vance's technical directors were running the show perfectly. I looked at the clock. I picked up my phone. I typed the 12-digit override sequence, and I hit execute. In a fraction of a millisecond, my logic bomb triggered. On the live broadcast, the majestic 100-foot hologram of the pop star violently glitched. A harsh, deafening electronic screech blasted through the stadium's massive PA system, causing 80,000 people to cover their ears. The pop star's golden avatar shattered into a million red pixels. Then, the rendering engine locked out the venue's control booth, the lasers forcibly realigned. high above the center of Wembley Stadium, suspended in midair for 80,000 people and 3 million live stream viewers to see. The lasers rendered a crystal clear, 100-foot 8K 3D hologram. But it wasn't the pop star. It was the high-definition security footage from my studio, a towering 100-foot projection of Camilla and Vance passionately kissing next to my server racks. Then, the audio from the security camera seamlessly hijacked the stadium's multi-million-dollar sound system, blasting at concert volume. I'll hire a crew to load the physical laser arrays into a truck, and I'll download the master repository. The poor pixel pusher won't even know what hit him. Vance's voice echoed like thunder across London. "You're a genius, my love. The nerd is gonna fund our entire empire." The 80,000 fans went dead, pin-drop silent. The livestream chat completely broke, scrolling so fast it was a blur. In the VIP box, Vance dropped his champagne glass. It shattered. Camilla put her hands over her mouth, her face turning the color of wet concrete. She looked like she was going to pass out. Down in the control booth, the technical directors were frantically mashing keyboards, screaming at each other, desperately trying to cut the power to the lasers. But the onboard battery backups I had installed kept the towering 100-foot confession glowing brightly in the night sky. Before the stadium security could even figure out what to do, a process server, hired by my UK legal team, walked right past the stunned bodyguards into the VIP box. He handed a thick stack of federal and international lawsuits directly to Vance. "You've been served," the server said. I took a slow sip of my coffee, smiled at the frozen live stream, and closed my laptop. You cannot recover from a 100-foot-tall public execution in front of the entire music industry. The fallout was an absolute apocalyptic corporate massacre. The video of the stadium projection went incredibly viral within minutes. Tech journalists and music blogs published my copyright filings, proving instantly that the software belonged to me and that Vance was a total fraud. Because Vance had utilized stolen, patented technology to launch a massive commercial tour, the pop star's management team instantly canceled the entire $100 million tour and sued Vance's conglomerate for catastrophic breach of contract and reputational damage. Vance's investors pulled their funding immediately. He was ousted as CEO by his own board of directors in less than 48 hours. The SEC and international authorities launched a massive, devastating investigation into his firm for fraud and intellectual property theft. His entire empire completely collapsed. Camilla's life was vaporized. Vance, realizing he was facing federal indictments and bankruptcy, immediately blamed her. He told investigators that she was a rogue creative director who had lied to him about the ownership of the code, throwing her to the wolves to save himself. She called me from a hotel in London, sobbing so hard she was hyperventilating. Rowan, please, the investors are suing me. Vance dumped me. I'm stranded in the UK and my bank accounts are frozen. You have to fix this. Please, I have nothing. You have the spotlight, Camilla, I said calmly. You always wanted to be the center of attention. Well, 80,000 people just saw your best work. By the way, check your email. You've been served with divorce papers. Enjoy the show. I hung up and blocked her number. During our divorce settlement, she had absolutely zero leverage. Because she was facing criminal charges for corporate espionage against me, the judge awarded me 100% of the marital assets. She walked away with millions in legal debt and a felony record. It's been almost 3 years since that opening night at Wembley. I own the Mirage engine free and clear. I reactivated the real, flawless software, and I licensed my technology to a legitimate global production firm for a massive multi-million-dollar payout. I run my own elite VFX studio now, and I only build illusions for people I trust. Last I heard, Camilla avoided prison by taking a plea deal, but she lost her career permanently due to the fraud charges. She is currently working as a front desk receptionist at a budget event rental company, watching people rent folding chairs, knowing she threw away a masterpiece for a cheap illusion. Vance is completely bankrupt, buried in endless litigation, and permanently banned from the touring industry. If there is a lesson to be learned here, it's this: never try to hijack a system if you don't understand the code that powers the light. If your partner thinks they can use you as a foundation, steal your genius, and lock you in the dark while they take the credit, don't panic. Don't fight them for the hard drives. Smile, let them load the trucks, and let them confidently launch their show on the biggest stage possible. And right when they think they've won the world, execute the override, flip the projection, and let the whole world see exactly who they really are. Thanks for listening to my story. If you enjoyed this one, drop a like, hit subscribe, and let me know in the comments what's the most satisfying tech fail you've ever witnessed. Stay sharp, trust the code, and always encrypt your hard work.